They are kidnappers.
Yeah, they came with gun. They came with gun. I'm not a kidnapper.
I've told you.
He gave that man a job, a salary, and a seat in his home. And that man used a kitchen pestle to end his life. What you are about to hear is one of the most disturbing cases to shake Nigeria in 2026. This is the true story of Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo, a respected man of God and the trusted driver who turned his home into a crime scene. Before we go into what happened on that terrible evening of May 12, 2026, let us first understand who Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo was, because when you know the kind of man he was, what happened to him will hit even harder. Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo was not just a church leader. He was a man who had devoted his entire life to God and to people. He was the founder and general overseer of End Times Reconciliation Ministries, based in Asaba, Delta State. On top of that, he held one of the most respected positions in Nigerian Christianity. He served as the secretary of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, Delta State. That position alone tells you how much respect he had earned within the Christian community. This was not a man who became a bishop overnight. He had worked, prayed, and served for years to get to where he was. People who knew Bishop Okonkwo personally described him as humble, calm, and deeply compassionate. He was not the type of pastor who only showed up on Sundays. He was involved in his community. People came to him for their problems. They came for counseling. They came for prayer. They came when their marriages were falling apart, when their businesses were struggling, when life felt too heavy to carry. And Bishop Okonkwo would sit with them and listen. He was that kind of man. His church members called him a father figure. Some of his closest associates even described him as a catalyst, someone who pushed spiritual growth across Delta State. In Christian circles around Asaba, his name carried serious weight. And because of that weight, his home was always open. People came and went freely. It was a place of peace, a place of trust. It was supposed to be the safest place in the world for him. Bishop Okonkwo lived in the community of Ibusa, a quiet and calm neighborhood located close to Asaba, the Delta State capital. His residence there was not just a house. It was where he prayed, where he prepared his sermons, where he rested after long days of ministry. The people around him in that neighborhood knew him. They respected him. Nobody would have imagined that inside that peaceful home, danger was already lurking, and it was not coming from outside. Now, like many busy men of God and public figures in Nigeria, Bishop Okonkwo employed domestic staff to help manage his daily life. One of those staff members was a man he hired as his personal driver and domestic aide. His name was Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu. Uchenna was not a stranger. He was not someone who showed up one day asking for trouble. He was a man Bishop Okonkwo had employed and trusted. He drove the bishop to his church appointments, to meetings, to events. He was inside the home regularly. He knew the bishop's schedule, his daily movements, which rooms were used for what, and where valuable items were kept. That level of access is only given to someone you trust completely. And that is exactly what makes this case so painful to think about. The bishop had opened his home to this man. He had given him income. He had given him responsibility. And according to those who knew the household, Bishop Okonkwo treated his staff well. He was not the kind of employer who looked down on the people who worked for him. He saw them as people deserving of respect and care. But something was building inside Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu that no one could see. Something that would lead to one of the most heartbreaking betrayals in recent Nigerian history. On the evening of Tuesday, May 12, 2026, the people of Ibusa had no idea that the peaceful home of their beloved bishop was about to become a crime scene. The day had started like any other day. Bishop Okonkwo had gone through his normal routine. Evening was settling in. It was the kind of quiet, ordinary evening that made people feel safe. It was the kind of evening that should have ended with the bishop going to bed and waking up to preach another sermon. But that is not what happened. On the evening of May 12, 2026, Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo was inside his residence in Ibusa, Asaba. The day was winding down. By all appearances, it was a normal evening at home. There was nothing in the air that suggested what was about to happen, and that is the most chilling part of this story. Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu was also at the residence that evening. That was not unusual, As the bishop's personal driver and domestic aide, being on the property was part of his everyday life. Nobody would have raised an eyebrow seeing him move around the compound. He had access to every part of that home. He knew the rhythm of that house, when the bishop ate, when he rested, when he stepped outside. And on this particular evening, Uchenna was paying very close attention to all of that. According to what investigators later put together, Bishop Okonkwo stepped outside his residence that evening. It appears he went out to check that the compound was properly secured, the way a responsible homeowner does before settling in for the night. It was a small, ordinary action, something he had probably done hundreds of times before. But this time, Uchenna was waiting. And he was not waiting to help the bishop or to ask a question. He had made a decision, and that decision had turned him into someone capable of doing something unthinkable. Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu allegedly picked up a pestle, a heavy wooden kitchen utensil used for grinding, and attacked Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo with it. He struck the bishop on the head. A man who had preached peace and compassion his entire life fell to the ground in his own compound, in the community that loved him, at the hands of a man he had trusted and employed. The force of the blows was catastrophic. Bishop Okonkwo never recovered. He lost his life that evening at his residence in Ibusa, Asaba, Delta State. Now pause here for a second. A pestle. This was not a weapon that Uchenna brought from outside. This was an item already inside the house, a kitchen item, something that had probably been used to prepare food in that very home many times before. The fact that he used something from inside the house tells us a lot. This was not a random attack. This was planned. This was a man who knew the home well enough to know exactly what was available and how to use it. After the attack, Uchenna did not stop to check on the man. He did not call for help. He moved quickly. He took the bishop's mobile phones. He collected other valuables from the residence. And then he did something that revealed exactly what was driving all of this. He took the keys to Bishop Okonkwo's Toyota Land Cruiser SUV, worth tens of millions of naira, and he drove away into the night. He left the bishop's remains behind. He left behind a family that would soon receive news that would shatter them completely. He left behind an entire church community that would wake up the next morning not knowing that their shepherd was gone. And Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu drove that Toyota Land Cruiser SUV across state lines from Delta State into Anambra State, heading toward Onitsha, one of the biggest commercial cities in the southeast of Nigeria. Here is where I want to stop and ask you something important before we continue this story. In the comments section right now, type the word trust if you believe that the people closest to us are sometimes the most dangerous. Because this case is forcing every Nigerian to ask a very serious question. How well do we really know the people we let into our homes? And before you answer that, I need to tell you something. If you are watching this video and you have not yet subscribed to Trem Crime Zone, please do it right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We cover true crime stories from Nigeria and across Africa every week. Real cases, real people, real lessons. Stories like this one that remind us what is truly happening in our society. If you care about these stories, if you want to stay informed and safe, Trem Crime Zone is the channel for you. Subscribe right now so you never miss a video. Now, back to Uchenna. He was in Onitsha trying to sell a Toyota Land Cruiser SUV worth tens of millions of naira for just 10 million naira. 10 million. Think about that. This was a luxury vehicle being offered at a fraction of its real value. To anyone in the business of buying and selling cars, that price screams one thing. This seller is desperate. This person wants the vehicle gone fast before anyone starts asking questions. And that desperation was already working against him. While Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu was in Onitsha trying to find a buyer for the bishop's Toyota Land Cruiser, the news of what had happened in Ibusa was spreading fast, very fast. People who knew Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo could not believe what they were hearing. A man of God attacked in his own home by his own driver? The story felt impossible, but the evidence on the ground was real, and it was pointing in one very clear direction. The Anambra State Police Command received credible intelligence in the early hours of Wednesday, May 13, 2026. The information coming in suggested that the Bishop's stolen Toyota Land Cruiser was being moved into Anambra State for possible sale. This was exactly the kind of lead that police needed to act on immediately. Officers attached to the Rapid Response Squad in Awaka were immediately activated under the directive of the Commissioner of Police. What followed was a swift intelligence-led operation. Police operatives tracked the vehicle and closed in on the suspect in the Onitsha axis, specifically in the area around Onitsha, Anambra State. The Toyota Land Cruiser was located, and with it, the suspects. Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu was arrested. His brother, who had allegedly been helping to source a buyer for the stolen vehicle, was also taken into custody. The Toyota Land Cruiser was recovered. The bishop's phones and SIM card were among the items retrieved from the suspects. The operation had taken less than 24 hours from the time the bishop lost his life. That is how quickly it all unraveled for Uchenna. When police brought Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu in for questioning, what emerged from the interrogation process was deeply revealing. A video of the suspect being questioned circulated widely online. In it, Uchenna gave a version of events in which he claimed that armed kidnappers had come to the bishop's residence, that they had arrived with guns, forced their way in, and taken both him and the bishop. He claimed they made him contact his brother. He claimed he had been threatened. He tried to distance himself from the crime, but the evidence told a different story. There was no sign of forced entry from outside. There were no other witnesses to any group of armed men. The pestle used in the attack was from inside the home. The bishop's belongings were found on Uchenna and his brother. The stolen vehicle was being sold by the very person who was supposed to protect the bishop. And just for a moment, let us sit with that word, protect. A driver is supposed to protect the person he works for. He is supposed to be a shield, not a threat. Every morning that Bishop Okonkwo got into that vehicle and Uchenna drove him, the bishop was completely vulnerable. He trusted that the man behind the wheel meant him no harm. That trust was his only protection, and that trust had been exploited. Now stop here once more. I want you to do something. In the comments below, write the name of a person you trust completely. Maybe a friend, a family member, or maybe just type "I trust in God." This case is a reminder that human trust can be broken at any moment. Share your thoughts. We read every comment on this channel. Also, if you have not subscribed to Trem Crime Zone, what are you waiting for? True crime stories like this one, stories of betrayal, justice, and life lessons, this is what we do. Subscribe now and join thousands of Nigerians and Africans who use this channel to stay informed. Press that subscribe button right now. Now, back to the investigation. As police dug deeper, more questions began emerging. Was this attack truly planned in advance, or did it happen in a moment of rage? What was Uchenna's motive? What pushed a man who had been trusted, employed, and taken care of to do something this violent? The early evidence and the speed with which he tried to convert the bishop's SUV into cash suggested that money was at the heart of this crime. Uchenna did not take the bishop's life for personal revenge in the traditional sense. He appeared to see the bishop's property, his vehicle, his phones, and valuables as a quick path to wealth. In a society where many young people are struggling financially and where getting rich quick has become a dangerous obsession, this case sits right in the middle of that painful conversation. Social commentators and religious leaders who responded to the news pointed out that the attack reflected something bigger than one man's greed. It reflected a growing wave of desperation and moral collapse among some young Nigerians who are willing to destroy the very people they help just to access what they have. The bishop had given this man a job. He had brought him into his home, and in return, he lost his life. The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria Delta State Chapter released a statement expressing deep shock and grief over the death of their secretary. Church members described the atmosphere in Asaba as completely devastated. The pulpit where Bishop Okonkwo had stood and preached hope to broken people was now silent. Authorities confirmed that both Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu and his brother had been taken into custody and were being held for further questioning. Police also stated that investigations were ongoing to determine whether any other individuals had prior knowledge of the plan or had in any way participated in what happened that evening.
What is your name? Uchenna who? Nicholas. From where? From Olu. What do you do for a living? A driver. Driver to who?
To my boss, Bishop.
Who is your boss? Bishop. Chinedu. Bishop Chinedu. Where Bishop Chinedu based? Asaba. Which working they do?
He's a bishop.
He's a bishop. And he owns a church.
He get a people to come pay.
Okay. So do you know why you are here?
Yes.
Why are you here?
Then who me for motor was
So you want to sell your motor?
It's not me that want to sell it. I told you they came to carry me. When they came to carry me, tell me say if I did not complete, they will waste my family. That I should contact person.
Who hold you?
Let me say that kidnappers.
They are kidnappers.
Yeah, they came with gun. They came with gun.
Who was inside the vehicle when the kidnappers came?
They are 4 in number. They came.
Who is inside the vehicle?
We are not in the vehicle, we are in the house. So they blow horn. My boss asked me to open the gate for them.
Okay.
So he thought that maybe it's his business, people that brought business. So when I opened the gate, they just came outside with gun. This Oka meat with compassion. The next one here, they hit Noga for head. Come for them, say if I no cooperate, say they will kill me. Then they carry me for motor. Open my phone, they search my phone. Say they know my family from Lagos.
Who started the car for them?
They can't not get security.
Not get security.
Yes,
they kill them with who? They kill them.
Now we won't take come out. We don't they come out already before Moga Cement and open gate for them.
So you know whether your guy don't die now or what?
No. I say they just people then tie my eye. They tie my eye. Now what don't I don't know where are they they say they call them.
Then now why do you want to sell the vehicle?
I want to they said that I should sell the vehicle. That as we did they said they watch us like that. No make I tell say no na waste they go dey somewhere here. The guy even come as the guy they tell me say I don't go call police for them. Because when I call I tell them say the guy tell me say he get Lexus wey dey there. Now tell my brother say I beg I no want problem. I'm not this man just come out say he get Lexus wey dey around here. Say those people na police people. Say I don't call police for that. I tell them say I no call any police for that. So before I know wetin dey happen
where did they drop you before they left? Those people that you mentioned.
For that my brother direct me they come and take with me then.
They dey with you where?
For inside the motor.
But we don't see them there now. Where did they drop you?
All of us followed that. They followed me that yesterday. When they contact my brother.
So when they left the hotel?
They no lodge. I don't know where they dey.
No where they dey.
Ask my brother. Me I get outside for that.
How much do you wanted to sell the vehicle before?
My brother said personal price about 10 million.
10 million.
I said they will find me something inside the make I tell them say what if I go what about my order? They go to send me carry remote to go sell. They say make I find my way.
I'm putting to you that you're a member of kidnappers at this syndicate.
Sir, I'm not a kidnapper.
I've told you.
The community of Ibusa near Asaba in Delta State was never the same after May 12, 2026. What had been a neighborhood known for its calm and its connection to a beloved man of God was now the center of a crime story that the whole country was talking about. People who lived near the bishop's residence could not walk past that compound without feeling something heavy in their chest. The gate that had once opened to welcome people in prayer and in need had now become associated with a night of betrayal and loss. Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo was gone. His family, the people who loved him most, the people who waited for him to come home every evening, received news that no family should ever have to receive. A man who had dedicated his life to helping others, who had counseled broken marriages, who had prayed for sick children and struggling families, had been taken from the world in the most painful way imaginable. Not by a stranger who came from far away, not by an enemy who had declared war on him, but by someone he had chosen to help, someone he had given opportunity. That detail, the detail of the employer and the employee, is what made this case echo across Nigeria like few others did. Because this is not a story that belongs only to Bishop Okonkwo. This is a story that belongs to thousands of Nigerian families. Families who have drivers, families who have helps house, families who have domestic workers living inside their homes, knowing their routines, knowing where they sleep, knowing what they own. The question this case forces us to ask is not a comfortable one. How much do we really know about the people we trust with our daily lives? How often do we think about the access we give to the people we employ? This is not a call to distrust everyone around you. That would be an overreaction, but it is a call for wisdom, caution, and awareness. The Delta State Governor's Office and religious leaders across the state sent condolences to the family and church of Bishop Okonkwo. The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria Delta State chapter, which had lost its own secretary, called for justice. Church members held prayer sessions. Fellow pastors and bishops across Nigeria mourned one of their own. In Christian circles, Bishop Okonkwo was remembered as a man who believed deeply in second chances, in grace, and in the power of transformation. It is one of the cruel ironies of this story that a man who believed in giving people a chance paid the highest possible price for giving one specific person a chance. That does not mean his belief was wrong. It means we live in a world where goodness does not always protect you and where kindness is sometimes met with the worst kind of betrayal. Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu and his brother were arrested and are in police custody at the time this story was being prepared. Investigation by the Delta State and Anambra State police commands was ongoing. Charges relating to the incident, including the most serious charge available under Nigerian law, which carries the possibility of the death penalty if a conviction is secured, are expected to follow as the case proceeds through the court system. For the bishop's congregation, the process of healing will take a very long time. The man who stood before them every week and reminded them that God was in control was gone. The voice that told them not to be afraid had been silenced, and the lesson they were left with was one of the hardest lessons any community can be asked to learn, that even the most faithful, most peaceful, and most generous life offers no guarantee of safety in this world. But here is what remains true. Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo lived a life that mattered. He touched lives, he built something, he gave people hope when they had none. No crime, no act of violence, no betrayal can take that away from him. His legacy lives not in how he passed, but in the people he helped while he was here. And for those people, his memory will remain something worth honoring. This case also leaves all of us with a serious responsibility. We must pay attention to the people around us. We must notice changes in behavior. We must create environments in our homes, in our churches, in our workplaces, where desperation does not fester in silence. Because Uchenna's actions, as evil as they were, did not appear out of nowhere. Something drove him to that moment. And as a society, we must have honest conversations about what creates such desperation and what we can do to address it before it destroys more lives. Rest in peace, Bishop Clarence Chinedu Okonkwo, a man who gave his life to bringing people closer to God and to each other. Now, I want to hear from you. This case touches on something very deep, the question of trust. Who do you allow into your life? What do you do to protect yourself and your family? And what do you think should happen to Uchenna Nicholas Obiagwu when this case goes to court? Drop your honest thoughts in the comment section below. This is a safe space to share. We read every single comment. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you hold the people you love a little tighter today, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps this story reach more people. It helps us keep telling these important stories from Nigeria and across Africa. And please, if you are not yet subscribed to Trem Crime Zone, subscribe right now. We bring you real crime stories every week. Stories that inform, that warn, that educate, and that remind us all of the kind of world we are living in. Stories told with respect for the victims and with the goal of making our communities safer and more aware. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Because sometimes awareness is the only protection we have. We will see you in the next one.